Spoiler alert, the following podcast includes discussions on film that may potentially, intentionally or inadvertently, reveal plot twists, character traits, story details, up to and including endings that might otherwise be considered spoilers. Proceed at your own risk.
You're listening to Moviesucktastic.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
It all sounds like some bad movie.
Oh my lord. Are you done putting things in your nose?
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
Yeah. Everybody else should realize they're lucky. They're lucky they didn't have to see what I just saw.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And it wasn't the trailer. Wasn't the trailer.
Now, may I also point out,
Yeah.
now the title Crocodile Dundee has quotations around crocodile.
Yeah.
That was done specifically so audiences would not be confused and think the film was about a crocodile named Dundee.
Oh, really?
Yes. That's on my list, along with the fact that the James Bond film License to Kill was originally titled License Revoked, but they changed it because most people polled in the test screenings didn't know what revoked meant. Yeah, so, again, Crocodile Dundee, because otherwise, like we were told. Now, Kangaroo Jack, they didn't use the quotes.
Yeah, they didn't, because it's about kangaroo.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're...
kind of like, eat, comma, pray, comma, love.
Commas confuse people.
Got rid of the commas.
Just ask my co-writer. Commas confuse people. So now... There's much more to talk about with Crocodile Dundee too, because the writing.
There is. There's a little bit more involved.
Well,
in the structure of the plot.
What I don't like about the film is it's better and worse at the same time. On the one hand, it actually has a real plot to it, where the first film doesn't. The first film doesn't really have a plot per se.
It's just that fish out of water story.
Yeah, it's got a setting.
That's it. That's all you really need to know about the first movie.
It's not a plot as much as an excuse to do stuff. The
Right.
second film actually has a plot. Something happens, things escalate. Then things are taken to another level in order to combat the problem, and then and then there's a resolution. Now, on the other hand, it's a bad plot.
Yeah,
it's a poor plot, and it's a cliche plot. My favorite part of the film is the opening scene.
Oh, with him doing the dynamite fishing.
Yeah, dynamite fishing in
Manhattan. Which is on behind your head right now. That exact scene.
I like it because I was just thinking that. I wish they would remake this film now, because in post 9/11 world, the Homeland Security would just blow the fuck out of him.
Yeah, he'd probably be just shot dead. And instead of them, no, Mick, oh, you're so funny, throwing dynamite in the water. And the helicopter comes in. He's like, all right, Mick, don't do it again.
Hey, Mick, hold on a second. There's a foreigner who probably doesn't have a green card. He's got explosives in a boat. I saw this comedy, but it was the 400, the Flight 400 explosion.
Ooh.
So, same thing. I mean, that was one of the theories.
Yeah.
Not Crocodile Dundee per se, but a foreigner.
Right.
Anyway.
Both films have two shots, or both films have a shot of the Twin Towers in each of the movies.
Well, but every film about New York did at the time. That's
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just, obviously looking now past post 9/11. It's just you forget how iconic the Twin Towers were to the skyline of New York.
I do, but on purpose.
On purpose.
So now he's living with obviously he's living with her because she has a job.
Yeah.
And so now he's homeless and or not homeless, he's jobless. So he's like bored, trying to find stuff to do.
Yeah.
Hanging around strange children is one of his hobbies, apparently.
At the park, sure.
And here you see the Mr. T-itis, Mr. T-ization, or the Mr. T transformation, where they turn Crocodile Dundee into a kind of family character. The first film was could it be a family film? It wasn't an R, was it? I didn't even look.
First film, PG-13.
PG-13. That was back when they had them, so they want to get you
Second
in
film,
there.
PG-13 as well.
Right, but they didn't really gear it towards kids. In this film, they kind of gear it slightly more towards kids because there's less violence in some ways, in a lot of ways. But
I think you don't see as much violence, but
there's more violence, but it's less violent.
Yeah. Like the one guy he's taken, which is a main part of the story, is her ex is a photographer, and he's out in, I believe it's Colombia.
It's got to be Colombia.
It could. It's probably Colombia.
Cue racial stereotype number 7.
Well, what happens is he is doing a piece, and he sees the head of the, I would assume, the Colombian mafia. You have this look on your face like you're aggravated with me.
Only because sometimes you just go a bit too much in the detail. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I mean, are we not reviewing the movie?
No, we are. But I mean, in my head, as a writer and as such, I edit, and all I'm thinking, and like the shorter version would be, he takes pictures of a drug deal in progress.
I was alluding to the violence.
Let's save the violence.
That's where I was going with it, because we were talking about how it has more violence but less violent.
Once again, I have some stuff I want to talk with you about on the violence part, so I want to cover the film first.
I was just gonna point out that he point blank puts a gun at some guy's head, but they don't actually show the gunshot. They kind of pan away.
Right.
But some dude still got shot in the head.
Yeah, no, and again, I want to talk about all this violent stuff after we talk about the film.
Okay.
No, just because we're gonna go off on it. I know we are, so I want to encapsulate that in the last part.
Well, then you lead the way. How's that?
Well, no, I mean lead the way. I'm just saying let's just skim past the violent part for the moment and go on to the plot more. So he emails, much like the
emails. Yes.
No, he mails. He mails, much like other films like Jake.
I'm going to listen back. I could have sworn you said email.
Yeah, it's because I said fast. He mails the film, because you can't email film.
Yes.
He mails the film to her, much in not Jake Speed. The other one.
The one with Whoopi Goldberg? No.
Well, there's that. That
was Jumpin' Jack Flash?
Jumpin' Jack Flash. Not really, but doesn't Romancing the Stone, doesn't that start the same way?
Shit.
I'm almost positive Romancing the Stone starts the same way.
Yeah, I think so.
Jake Speed doesn't start the same way. That's white slavery. Never mind. I just love Jake Speed. But but so she mails the film, of course, getting her and Crocodile Dundee involved. So the drug lord kidnaps her to get to the film, and then you have gangsters going after Crocodile Dundee, and the cops trying to track down the film. Hilarity ensues, right?
Yeah. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens is he goes to a local bar to recruit a gang as a distraction so he can get in and go get her.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is they get out.
Stereotype number 18.
Yeah, they get out. Yeah, and the gang is all white.
That's what I was alluding to.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I was vague in my description.
Right. So they get out. They go back, but I don't know what they were thinking with that. That they just we can just go back to our apartment. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they obviously ransacked the apartment earlier in the film to look for this film because they knew he mailed it to her.
Mm-hmm.
So why did they think going back there would have been a smart idea?
Because the cops told him to.
Oh, right.
I may just point out the one DEA agent and one cop.
Yeah.
Special guest appearances by, I need to get the names here, Stephen Root, who is my favorite role of his is Jimmy James from the talk radio show, news radio.
Yeah.
News Radio, Jim James. He plays a
Yep.
DEA agent.
That's
and then
right.
and then Gregory Jabara, I think I'm pronouncing that right. He's the cop that Crocodile Dundee serves eggs to. And he's very
Yes, he
young in
is.
this film. He's been in a lot of stuff, tons of stuff. But my favorite role he played was Kevin Kline's simple brother in In and Out.
Oh, I never saw that.
You never saw In and Out?
I don't think so.
Probably one of the best gay comedies of the 90s.
Really?
Yeah, hilarious. And it's I think it was a little ahead of its time. It was around the time where pro-gay films were really coming out in force in the mainstream media. At
least I don't think I've seen it. I've
it's
done
really
that
good.
before.
I like it. It's a really good film.
I've done that before where I don't think I've seen it.
Creepiest thing about the film is that I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's okay.
You have to see it if for no other reason, because what's his name? Mustache Man.
Oh, Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck's in it. Sans mustache.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I think that
See, that's a mental image you cannot get rid of.
Yeah. No, I think I have seen this movie.
Yeah. And he kisses Kevin Kline. So
That's right. He does.
See? And
Yes,
about the mustache.
Yes, I've seen the
He
movie.
probably shaved the mustache because of
As
that.
a matter of fact, that he did this film not too long after he won that lawsuit about the Inquirer, pretty much just coming out and lying and saying he was gay.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, and he just basically said, I have nothing against gay people, but I'm not gay.
And then he proved it by kissing Kevin Kline in a film.
That's right.
Tom Selleck's the man.
He's the man. He's all man. Man enough to kiss another man.
And even without the mustache, he's okay.
Okay.
It's creepy without the mustache. But where was? Oh yeah, So Gregory Jabara, he plays the young cop. So there's like two young people in that film that you see right there. It's like, oh, they've actually gone on to do tons of stuff.
Okay.
That was all. I had to point that out.
That's it. That's all you were going.
We're just Well, and then so Crocodile Dundee tells the cops, "You can't keep her safe. I'll keep her safe." So he takes her to Australia.
Right. So,
which turns out not to be so safe.
And the Colombian mafia follows them to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
They do whatever it takes. And now they're on Crocodile Dundee's turf, and they do have somewhat of an advantage. But this is one of those action comedies in the second half, where it goes more into the dramatic action instead of comedy in that second half of the film.
Yeah.
And a lot of films did that in the 80s, where is it a comedy or is it an action film?
Well, and that's where the film goes. I mean, and that's going to lead into our violence discussion.
Okay.
Too, because I'm just saying because it's this that real kind of mainstreaming of action films, action comedies, and don't forget that's a whole generation where you had kids our age growing up watching cable, watching films that weren't like things like Porky's or films that weren't Stripes. We grew up as children watching Stripes. That was not meant as a kids film.
Of course.
And so with that realization, they were starting to tone down these comedies and action films for kids to get them into theater, and knowing that they would be selling them to cable stations in the near future.
True.
So you had this kind of like what would you call it? Sanitizing of the cinema on a certain level.
Yeah, they had to be able to edit the film in such a way that they didn't take away from the film. By doing what you just said, the sanitization. Yeah, okay. I can't talk. It's too late to do things like that.
All right. Well,
sanitization of the film.
Can I point out? Oh, no, sorry. Can I point out my favorite scene in the film?
Sure.
My favorite scene in the film is and actually looking back, I believe this is one of those scenes they showed in clips on like Tonight Show and stuff when they were advertising the film.
Okay.
The subway, where the Australian outback stereotype is confronted by the Colombian/Italian, depending which, I'm not sure which one he was, but your Colombian drug goon.
It just popped up on the screen that they.
Oh, really?
Where he's taking the photos, it's Colombia.
Colombia, right?
Yeah.
So you have the Australian stereotype that's confronted by the Colombian stereotype.
Right.
They are interrupted by.
Why would you presume he was Italian?
Because it was a gangster. At least I'm honest. But not because but because that's how they're portrayed in films. Okay? Not
Okay.
because not because if I
Because
saw
he looks so Italian.
I don't know. They all look.
Oh,
He has the greasy hair. It could be anything.
wow.
In films, in the films, the way they stereotype people, they really go to the basic. He's got the slicked back hair. He's got the suit. I mean, at a glance, you could be any one of 3 or 4 stereotypes. They always stick out there. Okay, this is not reality we're talking about. We're talking about
Just for everyone that might be watching.
We're talking about the flickering image.
Watching the video later or live, even right now. The photographer in this film looks more Italian than the main bad guy.
Right, I'm sorry.
And he ain't Italian either.
So like I was saying,
Like
the,
you were saying.
the Australian stereotype is confronted by the Colombian stereotype. They are interrupted by the Asian tourist stereotypes, and the Australian stereotype is saved from the Colombian stereotype by another set of Asian tourist stereotypes. It is the most stereotype, and they were being given a tour by a young white New Yorker female stereotype.
Right.
So there's more stereotypes in this one 5-minute segment of film than in any Spike Lee movie, in any episode of Hee Haw. It's a very condensed.
You just made a hee haw reference.
Yes, I did. There's a lot of and the whole film is stereotypes. You have his black friend who is bad Leroy Brown.
Right, who's actually legit selling stationery.
They have to homogenize it for your young child audience because he can't actually have a hoodlum as a friend, so they have to make it a fake hoodlum.
Yeah.
You have the all white street gang that has the neon sign hangout. I believe the street gang from Rumble in the Bronx was more realistic with their hideout setting.
How about the gang leader just probably being in the wrong place at the wrong time, where he could have just been the Adam Sandler?
He should have been
Did you notice that?
Yeah, it definitely could have.
If Adam Sandler wasn't in the right place at the right time, this guy would have been Adam Sandler. He'd be making Grown Ups 2 right now.
Probably just be as funny. Yeah.
You heard about that, right?
No, but I'm not surprised.
Grown Ups 2 is a go.
I'm sure it is. I noticed the lack of shock.
Well, considering that his last film, Jack and Jill, did not do well in the theater, got a record 15 Razzies, I believe.
Wait. When you say not do well, it still made money.
Not that Adam Sandler is accustomed to.
Did it lose money?
Oh, probably not.
No, then it's.
I think it made like $60 or $70 million.
Then if it didn't lose money, then you can't. It's not a loss.
Well, I mean, I think as far as an Adam Sandler film goes,
okay.
When they walk into that room and they're sitting at the giant mahogany table and they say, "We're going to give you money."
We've done this before. We've done the Adam Sandler
I know,
thing,
I know.
hours. I know.
They weren't expecting this to financially do what it did. They were expecting more.
No.
All right. Let's move on.
It's my fault. Well, no, you brought up Adam Sandler. It's your fault.
Well, it had something to do with the movie.
Vaguely.
It did vaguely. I'll give you that.
Okay. So, I mean, the film derives most of its humor from stereotypes and from your same fish out of water sequences. Right. And let's go into the violence because you brought this up repeatedly and I kept pushing it off because this is a major focus for me.
Right.
When you watch I need to bring up in context with the 80s.
Okay.
I want to bring up the 80s and I want to bring up more modern. A perfect example of the approach to violence in these films would be the knife that Paul Hogan has. That famous scene, that's not a knife, that's a knife.
Right.
You can do it because I can't. We see him kill an alligator with it in the first film.
Yes, he does.
So we set a precedent that he is a violent man, not in a bad way, but he's able to defend himself and others. He can use violence. He has a huge knife that he does it with. We now have him running around with this knife and with the knowledge that he is a hunter tracker. He can do damage.
Yo, sure.
So, but we are now selling this film to a young audience, and we're turning him into a Mr. T type character, a fun-loving character. So we cannot be as violent as we want to be. So we have given this character a knife, and the means an ability to kill and or injure, and he's not doing it. And I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about, and you'll understand what I'm saying.
Right.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
Here was a film for kids. All the turtles had swords, and they couldn't use them.
I mean, they still had fight scenes,
But
it's not like you were going to see any of them run somebody through.
You couldn't cut anybody, right? So they would have these scenes where they're fighting ninjas.
I mean, Shredder gets fucked up pretty bad at the end.
Well, and the first one, and even that's kind of like, go to the second one. The second one's more of a perfect.
Oh yeah, the ooze, the green ooze.
Well, not. I'm talking about the swords, and you can look at Crocodile Dundee as the same example too. There's some violence in Crocodile Dundee 1, not a lot, but there is some violence.
Right.
Number 2, there's more promise of violence, but less shown. Look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. They're being attacked by all these ninjas and stuff, and all they can do is like, oh, I just cut this down and it fell on them. Oh, I'm gonna cut a hole in the floor. I mean, they can't cut the ninjas because now we're specifically selling this to a young audience. So
Right.
Crocodile Dundee is like, okay, he's got this knife. I mean, I want to compare it to X-Men. Remember the first X-Men?
Yes.
And Wolverine's got the claws. He doesn't really do anything with them. As far as like people, too much.
Right.
Then in the second film, like at the half-hour marker or something, when the military attacks the mansion,
Right.
and he hits that first military guy, and he just sinks the claws into his ribs, like with both fists. I remember just this thrill, like holy shit, he fucking killed somebody with them, and that's what they're there for. And that was the big thing. The big issue was. You can't make any more films with him not using these things. They're there for a reason. That's what they're there for.
Right.
So we've got this situation with Crocodile Dundee where he's got this big fucking knife, and he's got it out, and he's stalking through the hall of this mansion where they've got his wife that he loves, and he comes up to the one guy.
Their girlfriend.
They weren't married yet?
No, they weren't married.
I'm not going to call her wife. It's still his wife. It's Paul Hogan's wife, right?
Yes.
They've got his wife kidnapped, and so he went to the halls. The woman he loves, and instead of just going up to the guy and then sinking this fucking knife into his back or his throat or something, is like, well, let me. They're gonna throw garbage, and then I'm gonna hit him with a statue, and then it's like all this bizarre pantomime stuff. He catches the one guy at the apartment when he doesn't even know if she's alive or not, and he strings him up with a rope over the street instead of just like cutting off a finger. And saying, all right, now let's talk, because you're going to tell me where the hell she is. And it's this kind of like avoidance of violence. He has all the trappings of violence and does everything he can to avoid violence. And it's so conspicuous. And like you said too, when there is gun shots,
Yeah, I just
off screen, or like when they kill her ex-boyfriend, it's off screen. You just hear the. They don't even use real gunshots. They use like silencer shots.
Well, yeah, but I think, and I'm not disagreeing with you completely. I'm just
Better not.
No, I'm not. But I think them being in New York,
Yeah.
I think them being in New York, he's kind of following the rules here, and again, they're using New York, the filmmakers, as an excuse to make it less violent in the exact way you're mentioning, but. If the film took solely, if the whole film was solely in Australia, I think they would have been a little more violent because you can get away with more.
No. But
as a society and as a country, because once they go to Australia in the second half of the film,
more violent than America. You saying Australia?
No. I'm saying
no. That doesn't hold up though, because look at the street gang.
No, I'm talking about because they're out in the middle of the fucking bush. They're out in the middle of nowhere. You can get away with anything there. What I'm saying is, once they go to Australia in the second half of the film, they do more with the violence.
No, but
whether or not you see more of it,
but
it's more straightforward. It's less comical. It becomes a more dramatic in the second half because they're in Australia.
More dramatic, but it's still not even a smidgen.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying once they go to Australia, it's not so
tone
funny.
changes.
Ha-ha.
The tone changes, but again,
Completely.
the tone changes, but also, there's still not the violent level there. But and again, look at the whole thing with New York City, where he gets a street gang to come out with him, and the street gang's like all nice and stuff, and they throw in garbage. And obviously, I'm not expecting Crocodile Dundee to be beheading people.
It's a white street gang.
And again, those are in great abundance. All white street gangs. Usually, when they are, they've got like a shorter haircut, if you know what I mean. Sure. I mean, I don't expect them to be killing people left and right, but there's a conspicuous avoidance of any real serious violence until we get to Australia, and then once it's into hunting trappings, the gun violence is okay. And maybe a lot of it has to do with any kind of deal they had with New York City. Although I think that was before New York City was really protecting the turf, so to speak.
Right.
Before the Giuliani turned it into Disneyland. But I mean, you watch the whole film through. I mean, even in the first one, he's shooting. He takes a gun and shoots at poachers. And
who
doesn't even know? Yeah,
he's just.
Just
scaring them away.
Right, but like he's driven like to the middle of the outback, up against before he's actually gets to the point where okay, now I'm going to start shooting at people.
I know where you're coming from. I really do. I don't agree with it 100%, but I know where you're coming from.